Roy was a real inspiration to me because I felt that no one was really taking on the big philosophical questions in a way that was simultaneously radical and commonsensical, but on a profoundly high theoretical level. Struck me that he created a kind of a ground for the kind of both the kind of politics I have and the kind of theoretical work I do that no one else was really offering. Unfortunately, I only knew Roy in the last 6 months or 8 months of his life. I met him quite late, and we got on immediately. I just thought he was one of the most warmest, most optimistic, delightful people I'd met. I remember at the time he had a lot of issues in his life, and I remember thinking to myself, and here's this guy, he's got so many problems. He's got financial problems, he's got practical problems, he's got political problems, he's got incredible medical problems of all sorts of different kinds, often in pain, and yet he seems so incredibly cheerful and optimistic. And I remember thinking to myself at one point, wow, how can anybody have all these problems and just be so philosophical about it? And I thought, oh, right, he's a philosopher. He actually is a philosopher. It really does make a difference. I've been really frustrated by the degree to which Roy has remained kind of an unknown figure, despite the fact that I think if you have to look at the late 20th century in retrospect, you have to say that he was one of the most important thinkers in social theory and philosophy of science, certainly, but I think philosophy more broadly. And I hope that the time will come when he's recognized as such. I don't think there's anyone who's made such consistently innovative and important contributions, because he was a creative thinker. In a way, that was his misfortune. He was never satisfied. He would come up with one grand theory which would be worth a lifetime's work for a major thinker, any other major thinker, and after a certain amount of time he would suddenly reinvent himself and come up with something which included the former work but went beyond it. And he did that on more than one occasion. It had practical implications. It confused a lot of his followers, but I don't think there are that many major thinkers who've ever actually managed to pull that off. We've come up with three completely new schools of philosophy all by himself. I just find it incredibly frustrating. I talk to people so often, 95% of the time, you mention Roy Bhaskar's name to even to philosophers of science sometimes, but like to intellectuals you'd think would have to know his work to even be intellectually literate, and people just say, who, what, Roy, what? No. They just have no idea. I mean, I really feel this person should be a household name, at least among intellectuals working in social theory. Yet somehow it just hasn't become part of the canon. I don't know if that's because he's too radical. I don't know if he's too creative. The way he kept transforming himself, the world hasn't been able to integrate it yet. The fact that he wasn't really a politician in any sense of the academic term, it really was a genuine deep thinker. But I think more than anything else, this reflects incredibly poorly on the state of the academy nowadays. Roy grew up at a time when one could assume that if one was making obviously significant contributions to human thought and to human knowledge, that even if one was completely impractical and one was really not a politician, at least they wouldn't let you starve. Maybe you wouldn't have a nice house, but you'd have some place to stay. You'd have a room. You'd have a desk to work at. The world would provide if you'd proven that you had something important to offer it. That's just no longer the case. And toward the end of his life, I mean, he's scandalously abandoned by the academic community that he contributed so much to. And I think this is a terrible thing. I mean, it shows something really degenerate about the state of the academy, but at the very least it would be nice if over the long term academy gives him some of the recognition that he really didn't have in his own lifetime.
You could help me get Roy's words out there, and in helping me, I believe we help ourselves, because Roy's idea of freedom comes from the idea of an intentionality, a desire to want freedom, and I believe that you and I together could bring Roy's words to the world, and more people can experience Roy's pulse of freedom.